Hello.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to EnvironMental Podcast.
Yeah, this is our podcast where we investigate different aspects of sustainability each week. And each month we choose a topic and then we spend the month talking about it.
Yes, we do. And this month we've been talking about deforestation.
Yeah, and holy crow,
Mm-hmm.
it's a big one.
Right. Yeah, it is. We knew that going into it,
We did.
but
We did. Um,
the
but I
more you
think,
learn, the bigger it gets.
yeah, it's one of those topics that's like, I think the other topics kind of kept leading us to other things and we felt like we were getting more answers. But actually, I just end up having either more questions or I get way more frustrated as we go with this one.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah, this is probably something that, will happen every time we kind of get to these bigger global level issues,
Yeah.
because the causes for them are kind of always the same thing and always incredibly frustrating because it is a system that we're kind of stuck in.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Exactly.
yeah, but gosh, yeah, today we're going to be kind of doing a bit of an overview of everything that we learned and just kind of wrapping up the topic of deforestation because this yeah.
Yeah. I think we could honestly have a whole nother month about it, talk to
Oh
more
yeah.
people, but I don't think that we would get more answers than we have right now or solutions than we have right now.
Mhm.
We might find some other like smaller brands doing really cool things, but in all together, yeah, I think we're there.
Yeah. So in yeah, this one is different because there aren't necessarily any like tangible solutions really. um I mean, we got to this point in wanting to learn about deforestation because we were talking about packaging and packaging waste,
Mhm.
and because paper and cardboard tends to be the most or what's thought of as the most sustainable solution for
Right.
packaging, product packaging.
Right. So we were like, but is it?
Mhm.
I still don't freaking know.
I think that the answer is still is yes. Yes,
Okay.
because though paper and cardboard production does contribute to deforestation in some ways, it is certainly not the leading cause of deforestation.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
there are other alternatives that we've already kind of touched on that if you want to create sustainable packaging that is made from paper or cardboard, do so with recycled paper or cardboard,
Yeah.
post-consumer
Yeah.
waste.
Hit up Greg Barber at Eco-Friendly Printer. He will hook you up.
Yeah. Yes. Greg's the best. And he gave his cell phone number, so you can hit him up anytime.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we did not edit it out. You could go find it on the Greg Barber Changemaker chat from last month.
Yes, it was really funny. He's a great dude.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think moving from there, we were like, oh, we had some questions in the beginning, and I wrote down a bunch of questions. And one of those questions is, what is the biggest contributor to deforestation? And honestly, it is primarily agriculture and pasture, or harvesting wood for fuel to burn for industrial uses. So fossil fuels, animals, and actually palm oil was a really big one.
Yes.
Um, Cocoa is also a big deforestation driver, and we spoke to Catalina von Hildebrand last week, and she gave us a lot to think about when it comes to the cocoa industry. And in the past week, there has been some really cool news coming through, which is that I think it's Hershey, Mars, and Nestle
Mhm.
are being sued in the US because they are using child labor for their cocoa products.
Yeah, and so these folks that were working on the I guess plantations, farms,
Mhm.
have
They
banded
came
together
forward. Yeah.
to, yeah, to stand up to these massive brands, which is incredible.
Hmm.
And I really hope that it brings light to the fact that, your chocolate is so cheap because it utilizes slave labor.
Right. Yeah. That's
Uh,
not cool. And I want
yeah.
to like they use a production company, like the industrial side of that, called Berry. Shit, I can't remember the name. Do you remember the name? Berry Catalog, something like that.
Ooh.
Um, I wrote it down.
I take a lot of notes.
Yeah,
Shoot, it might be in that article, which we can link
we should.
here.
Yeah,
Um,
it starts with it's. Let's just call them
it's
BC
like a
because they're
name. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's a name. Let's just call
Mhm.
them BC. So, and we will link that. Catalina sent us that article like just a couple days after our chat, so that was really cool. Thank you, Catalina.
Yeah.
So I want to say that Tony Chocolonely uses the same uses that industrial cocoa creator and farm connector also. And I want to just kind of also call them out here because right before the announcement for the Hershey's, Mars, and Nestle like trial,
Yeah.
right before that lawsuit, Tony Chocolonely, like just a couple weeks ago, was like, "Yep, we use this producer, and the reason we use this producer is so that we can fight this child labor and slave labor from inside of the industry." And I loved that message. They gave facts and figures. It's more than 300 identified and more than 200 solved. And I want to kind of just like that was the Tony Chocolonely statement. I bet that they knew about the lawsuit coming
Yeah.
that they put out. But then you look at like the Hershey statement, the Nestle statement, Mars was just kind of like, we don't talk about it. And Hershey and Nestle were kind of like, yeah, it's not cool. We don't condone it. We have
Yeah, we don't
protocol
condone
there.
it. It's like
Like,
totally shifting the responsibility as if they have no control in this situation. It
right,
is kind of insane.
right.
But yeah, I mean, Tony Chocolonely, they specifically kind of they stated that like, yes, they still work with these producers, but they do so to provide and provide a living wage. Like they have
Yep.
their own kind of ways in which they pay these folks. And
Right.
yeah, and the inner workings of how all of that happens is
It's it's a lot.
it,
It's a
and
whole
it's
different culture.
hidden. It is
Yeah.
not something that they want the public to know. So it's interesting how, yeah, how like one chocolate brand could have maybe some sort of relationship where they actually do pay people a living wage, and
Mm-hmm.
another could use the same plan,
Right.
the same farm, but not. I'm not really sure what, is happening there. But
Yeah, yeah, it kind of seems like, I mean, you have different clients, right? And you like we take clients, it's kind of like we give the client what they want. If one client says, I want to pay you for
yeah.
your best service, we're going to do that. And if another, and I want this and I have these rules and this structure, that's what you give them. If another client says, find me the cheapest shit you can,
Hmm.
like,
That's
you know,
true. Yeah.
that's a different that's a different way of coming to it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
just to
I'm
point out those two differences, within the same Ivory Coast and Ghana, and that's one industry, and it's not the biggest industry for deforestation, but it is the one that like we just know about now. and care a lot because chocolate.
Yeah. But palm oil though that's like a whole separate issue. Palm oil is in everything because it is so cheap and it grows quite quickly.
Hmm.
So they can just, plant things in rows and knock it all down and just, yeah, and it can be this like really industrial procedure.
Yeah.
Um, but is just wreaking havoc on the actual like biodiversity of places in throughout
Yeah.
like
It's
Southeast
causing really big
Asia.
issues. And
Hmm.
I think like one of the brands that we have a lot of respect for and follow came out last week and said, we just found out that something that we sell has palm oil in it and we didn't know. And our supplier didn't tell us. And we trusted them. And it turns out there's palm oil. We effed up. They took they took responsibility for it. They made donations around it. Like they made it right. But it made us feel like maybe we should talk about sourcing. Maybe we should like, so I think that's what I want to, I think that's what we were going to talk about next month,
Yes, yeah, because
stemming from the palm oil thing.
yeah, it's something that we've had like personal experience with some of
Yeah.
the businesses that we've worked with where they thought that what they were sourcing was up to their standards, but they were lied to.
Mhm.
And this happens
Yeah.
a lot. Well, salespeople will be
It's
salespeople
crazy.
and they'll say whatever you want to hear.
Yeah, but that's just feels, it's so shitty. It's so
It's
shitty.
really
The
shitty and
lack of
it's like,
transparency in sourcing in a global economy is so irking. It's,
yeah. And it's so unfortunate that like again the work so much is put on the individual, the brand owner to like
mhm,
do such intense levels of research in order to know if what they're sourcing is actually what they say it is, like the people
right.
that you choose to partner with and the suppliers you choose to purchase from, you have to have some level of some sort of a trusting relationship with them. And yeah, but there are some people that are so shady and
Yeah.
will choose
And
profits over truth. And
yeah. And we see that in deforestation too. Like one of the
yeah.
biggest things that we talked about when we read Save the Planet was timber poachers. People that just like, there can be laws. This is one of the big things. It's like a lot of times a law can help, so like with the packaging or recycling, that can like, laws can help with it. But here it doesn't. People just start stealing and cutting down trees of the Amazon, right? Something like 5% of the Amazon is still cut down every year through timber poaching.
Yeah.
What the actual fuck?
Right, because having like laws on the book, it's like political greenwashing.
Oh my god, it's a new term.
Is that even a term? Good, but
No,
it's
because
like,
now
oh,
there's
we put a law in place to like solve this issue, but no one's enforcing it
right. You gotta get
ever.
like a EP, like you have to get the EPA and like officers out there. That's the
Right.
only way. You have to like really go for it and enforce it.
But yeah, I mean, but like what you can have a security guard around every tree or something, like it's such a vast amount of space that they can just
Yeah,
go unnoticed, these timber poachers, because they can hide.
right. And you
Uh,
make another good point is a lot of times that they off camera, you made another good point that a lot of times, even if they were to do that, they set a security guard at every tree.
mm,
People will just pay off the security guard to go take a piss break so they can cut their tree down. Like,
right.
what do
The
you
level of
do?
corruption is still so
Yeah,
massive that, yeah, even
yeah,
people that want to do bad will find a way, regardless of laws. It's
right.
not
And
true
is it
all
like,
the time, but
yeah, but is it, then it comes into like a little bit more heady. Is it like a bad, or is it just like, I think it just
bad's not
is
the right term. Yeah, yeah, but
capitalism and colonialism
right. Yeah, there are
Again,
circumstances that cause people to have to
right,
make that choice that are typically like socioeconomic
right.
situations that that person's dealing with that force them to stoop to the place where they would be a timber poacher and for their livelihood. It's
Right.
all money, you know.
It's all money. Oh, um,
Yeah.
ugh. Another question that we had was how much of the earth should be forest? And that was actually really hard for me to find.
I
What I
bet
learned,
because it's an interesting question. Yeah.
yeah, but what I learned is that like right now, 31% of the planet is forest. Um, and that before the estimation was that 48% was forest and only like 1/5 of the Earth's original forests remain untouched. Which was so like how much should be is a
What is
weird question.
should though? What does should mean in that regard?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I think I wasn't asking the right question, but I thought that it was an interesting that we started at 48%, we're at 31%, so it doesn't seem like that's big loss, but it's a big enough loss to like make a massive difference. And something that Ben said, which is about like planting trees and how trees aren't responsible for cleaning up your shit, is just what I think about when I think about that question. How much should be forest? It seems like I was kind of thinking in this way of, well, how many trees should there be to clean up our shit? But
Mm-hmm.
I think Ben made a really good point in our Changemaker chat 2 weeks ago when he said, it's not the tree's responsibility to clean up your shit. It's doing it because that's what it does. It's a tree.
Right.
But it's our responsibility to live a more sustainable life with less waste.
Yeah, we can't just put all the responsibility on trees to try to capture all the carbon in our
Right.
atmosphere. Right. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
Which was something that we had said, we were, yeah, which is I've learned now that yeah, you kind of can't say, oh, the solution to our carbon problem is planting more trees. That's not, yeah, that's
It,
actually not everything. That's
it's not everything. It's helpful and also beautiful. There's a lot. Ben even talked about how many good things come from having trees in parks and in cities and
yeah,
green spaces that people have access to, and how to use that wood. That was what he does is reforestation. And then when trees fall, they use the urban wood to create products, which might be a really good way to help stop deforestation because you're using the trees that fall in the city.
yeah.
So that might help. But
It's one solution, absolutely, right? I
yeah,
mean,
we need all the solutions.
right, every little bit helps if it's, all for the purpose of keeping things sourced locally and taking what would be just waste and putting it to use by providing cities with an actual solution
Mhm.
in which they haven't had before, yeah,
Right. Yeah.
it's really, really interesting.
Yeah, it kind of feels like there's a lot of solutions and also not very many solutions somehow.
There's like a lot of little like micro solutions, but
Right.
because it's such a global issue, no one's in charge of that.
Yeah. Who's in charge? Yeah. And
So
it also depends on the goodwill of the people that want to be a part of it. It's not just the hippies anymore. It's like really important that the goodwill of people take care of the trees, you know, which I think is so ironic because trees are so positive. They have nothing but goodwill. You go for a little walk and you're surrounded by trees, and then it just feels so great. They're the best listeners out there. And if you listen really close, they often will give you suggestions back about what to do. But we just they're so easy to ignore and cut down and destroy. You know, they're like Earth's doormats or something.
Yeah, I think it speaks to how
Providers.
we think of everything as a commodity rather than something that we can learn from just because it's not a human. It's not, it doesn't
Right,
bring us money unless it is cut down and processed
right,
um and that's so many people's mindset is just like, all right, how can I take this for everything that it's worth?
right. But a growing tree has more worth than cut down than if it was to be cut down. And that was a lot about the book too, was how can indigenous tribes in Brazil like compete in the commodified world by not cutting their trees down. And then you get
Right.
into carbon sequestration and those levels and what, and that's still working on this capitalist system. And
Mm-hmm.
Ben made a really good point there too, saying like that's not really effective. That's, it's effective in one way, but it still takes the responsibility out of the people's hands for making more sustainable choices every day. Um, so,
Yeah, it's there are not a whole lot of like overarching solutions here except to be mindful of what we're consuming and ultimately to, if you're interested, be part of the conversation and watch what some of these organizations are doing,
mhm.
um, and support ones that you feel are working towards positive change
Yeah,
in
yeah,
to some extent. No one organization is going to solve this. No one country can solve this.
right. And I think there was, I did some other research and I found an article that gave some solutions. To me, it felt a little bit more like placation because solutions have to be there,
Hmm.
but it's still worth it because we still should choose to do all this. It's not like, well, we can't do anything about it anyway, so we shouldn't do, so we shouldn't even try.
Right. Yeah. That defeatist attitude isn't going to get anybody anywhere. Yeah.
Right. So this which we'll also link here, it's from an article from actually I think the Tree Foundation. They say to reduce, actually do reduce your consumption of paper and wood products, that is virgin paper and wood. Try to work with recyclables. Recycle your paper. Uh, use reclaimed wood. There are shops out there that, like, we're building a house right now and we're trying really hard to use reclaimed wood everywhere possible. There are shops out there that focus on giving wooden floors or old doors or this kind of stuff a second home. So focus on that. And then make sure that, try your best to make sure that you're sourcing wood from sustainable plantations that are operating legally. Find substitutes for firewood, like don't chop down a tree for firewood. Maybe try to use trees that have fallen. Um, and what I thought was really interesting was stabilize the population by shifting to having smaller families. And that just felt like it was thrown in there in this article. But
Hmm.
it also brings up this kind of idea around how us accelerating our family structures and having so many kids and like growing so fast with this massive boom in population as a species, as humans, have has led to more deforestation than anything else. We have
Hmm.
more needs for products and more needs for meat and for vegetables and palm oil, and we have more needs because there's more people. So shifting to
Yeah.
having smaller families helps us with population control and to share the planet with other beings. And I thought that was like maybe actually the most effective solution that is so long term, but interesting.
And that is interesting. I wish I could pull it right now. I've heard that as a solution for a few, of the environmental issues that are happening. But I've also heard some pushback on that and people saying that that is um, sort of a mindset that came about through colonialism. Like it is and I might not have all of the information right, but I think that it was maybe it was when the conversation was around like how to kind of stabilize certain African countries, and the Eurocentric narrative was like control the population. There's too many people in Africa to live sustainably, and that's why people are going hungry and don't have resources, which is just not true. Africa
No, that's not true.
has insane resources. That's why colonialism happened. Um, they just don't
That
have
was
control
designed.
over them, right? So
I still think I
yeah,
see that, and I've heard that, and also you see that in China with the ban on having multiple kiddos. In like
yeah,
Asian countries, they can have two, and if it's a girl, like there was, I don't know if that still happens, and I'm not educated enough around that those actual
yeah.
laws, but it's also rooted in communism in that way.
Hmm.
But I do think that there are too many fucking people on the planet, and if we keep having 6 children, we are actively growing the population,
Yeah,
right? If you have 2 children and your parents and you both die, then you haven't increased the population overall. So I
yeah.
also hear pushback from like Tom, because we talk about kids, because we are a normal couple. And well,
In your
typical, I
30s,
guess.
and it's like happening. You have a
We're
house.
typical couples in our 30s, so we should have that conversation. Make sure we're on the same level, healthy communication, everyone. Um, we so he comes to the table with suggestions like, yeah, but we can't not have kids as these educated people because
Right.
we have to we have to educate the future generation.
That is a very interesting thing that's happening right now. Yeah, with our generation in particular, is that the more educated people are, the less likely they are to have children, and then who's all having the babies?
The climate change deniers and the uber religious and the people like I'm not anti that, I'm anti climate deniers. The
I'm
shit is real.
anti. I'm anti. I'll take that stance. I'm anti.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm not anti super religious people, but I am anti
Not
judgment.
in
So
not in not in theory, but yeah. Yeah.
I am anti growing big huge families because I don't think it's sustainable. But anyway,
Yeah.
yeah, I do feel anti. Anyway, like
That's
trying to be
okay.
non-judgmental, but I can't help it.
No, yeah, I mean, we're not anti-religious beliefs, but
Abstinence isn't ever going to be a real solution. Please teach your children sexual education.
yeah.
Um, yeah. As a side note, I studied a lot of Roman mythology in like ancient Rome, and you know the movie 300 with like the Spartans.
Mhm.
So the reason why their population was so small is because they were educated and they educated their women and they gave their women uh, the rights to education, the rights to own land, the rights to make choices about childbearing. And as they got more educated, their population got smaller. And meanwhile, the Romans and the Ottoman Empire they just kept having all of the kiddos that they possibly fucking could, and they just ran over the Spartans. And
Mhm.
I can kind of see, like, knowing that, I wrote a whole, like, very long, detailed paper about how Spartan women are the, like, monster women that you see in the ancient Romans because they had will. They had free will. So, and a lot of this, like, Amazonian or monster women, like Medusa stories that come out of those ancient times were like those women with free will.
Mhm.
And it
That
was
they wanted to
basically,
vilify.
they wanted to vilify them, right?
Yeah.
So that their people wouldn't want to follow that same trajectory.
Mhm.
But the Spartans ended up getting, like, totally fucked over because they didn't have enough babies.
Yeah.
So it's
Interesting.
hard. Like, that's kind of the balance that we're seeing, that we're talking about right now, is like the people that are having the kids are
Mhm.
the ones that take over, and the ones that are educated and, like, understand that untethered growth isn't healthy are losing out on that.
Hmm.
It's a total sidestep, but
Wild. I didn't know that actually, but it makes sense. That makes perfect sense. And it's interesting. I mean, yeah, how societies and who's in power shifts and changes over time and what contributing factors are, behind that happening.
mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, we are in a really interesting time in history.
Yeah.
In the States and in Europe and yeah, dynamics are shifting in a good way. But
Maybe, yeah,
well,
hopefully.
di- yeah, okay, yeah, that's a dynamic. Things are changing in the world.
A changing environment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
only time will tell.
Yep.
Hmm.
It makes me feel so forlorn to have these conversations because it's like, question mark. Um,
But yeah, I mean, what was it? Something that Catalina said. I think it was in the portion that we recorded. We spoke to her a bit afterwards, sort of off
a
the
long time.
record, um, because that conversation quickly gets into like, oh my God, global capitalism, colonialism. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but she said something like, the activist still has to eat, or something to that effect.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, where it's
I'm not
like,
sure that was on air, but that is yeah.
yeah, and I thought that that was, I had never heard that specific phrase. And it was, yeah, it's sort of like, I feel like that's kind of where this podcast sits, is like, yeah, we still are living this life right now and
Right.
still have to be a part of this society and
Right.
meet our own basic needs. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, which is why we sort of fit it's like this weird kind of in between of like, yeah, we need to know about all of these things that are happening and all of these global issues around sustainability,
Mm-hmm.
but we still have to consume to some extent. We still have to
Right.
buy food, goods, services, all of the things. So
Right. But also, like, it's so conscious consumerism is a lot different than not consuming. And
yeah.
I think that no matter what your species or where you occupy space on this planet, you're utilizing resources. Like, we cannot be expected to not utilize resources. Where the problem is when you cut down whole fucking forests to put a cow on the land. You don't need that. Now you've ruined other people's and other species resources to
Mhm.
to take your own that you don't need. So I think
Yeah.
I keep having to remind myself of that. Like I also exist on this planet and can't not take resources.
Just
But
about
what
balance, you
it's
know?
about balance. It's about finding that the right way to do it. And I think it gives me a lot of like comfort also to think that, because I think it's really easy to feel really guilty when you think of yourself as an activist for sustainability.
Hmm.
Yeah, the activist still has to eat, man. We can't go on a hunger diet
Right.
and still be effective, I should say. Yeah. Um,
Yeah, man.
I'm looking for like other questions and answers that we haven't answered in other. I have my list. We talked about we talked a lot when we talked about packaging about the FSC and
Hmm.
how maybe that's not the best solution. Where I do think that the FSC, that's the Forest Certification, Forest Stewardship Council, and they have the Forest Management Certification.
Hmm.
Yes, all of letters. They so many letters. So are they the best solution? I think I was really like, no. For paper and packaging, that's not great. But then I learned about the timber poachers. Then we learned about like these people that just steal forests, lumber mills that are illegally being run. And I think I've changed my mind. I think the FSC is extremely important. I do think that focusing on post-consumer and secondhand wood and packaging is the best way to go, but it's extremely important to have certified forests and certified mills and certified lumber because of the extent that people poach and steal wood and products and land.
Yeah,
Unfortunate, that's an unfortunate reality that I didn't know about.
it is. And but that's it's a good distinction to know that difference. Like, yes, of course, trying your best to source recycled materials is always going to be the most sustainable option. But when that isn't an option, which is
Mhm.
common, that is not something that everybody has access to, like, like, yeah, recyclable materials, then looking for that FSC certification is just sort of another way of ensuring that you're not contributing negatively to
Right, right.
yeah. So,
Yeah, you might pay a little more,
mhm.
but I also am a firm believer in the more that you buy that is sustainable, the cheaper that it becomes over time to to make those options possible.
Yeah, I mean, you're almost sort of like funding the future, right? Like you're
Yeah.
funding this system to be able to grow and to be able to, now they can invest more in these means of recycling and these um or means of protecting forests and stuff like that. Like these premiums are often for good reason. And if you think of it as
Mhm.
sort of like an investment in the future, like maybe, maybe you're the next generation will have the system down that it becomes a more affordable solution in general.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Because in reality, it is the more affordable solution.
It is. We're just not paying the cost of losing the trees. We
Right.
don't
Not
know.
yet.
There is no tangible cost for that. So
Right.
we're paying it. The world is paying for it somewhere. But yeah, it's really
Mhm.
hard to put a number on that.
Right. Yeah. And I think one of the things that shocked me the most, there were two. One of them is where the forests are. And the other one is that only like 2/3 of our production comes from like a sustainable plantation. So if 2/3 of our global wood production is sustainable, what do we do with that other 1/3? Is that coming from these deforestation? Yes. It
Hmm.
like a third of the wood that we use comes from deforestation. And how can we make that up? And it's like
Hmm.
cambium carbon is a really good answer. And reduce, reuse, recycle is another really good answer. Do I think I don't know what that would do, but I think just being conscious of that, because there's only 5 places where the forests really are in our planet. Um, Russia, Brazil, Canada, the US, and China, which is really big.
Wait, that's what is that list?
That is the list of where uh, more than half of the world's forests are.
More than half of the world's forests are found in only
5 places.
5 countries.
Yeah. There's more than 200 actual countries, but
Hmm.
5 of them have
Have
more than half of our forests.
Yeah. Russia. Those are big because those are huge countries. Yeah.
Huge countries,
Yeah.
but that's still a
Hmm.
chunk.
Hmm. But that's interesting that that's like not where, like, I wonder who's the biggest like supplier of the world's like firewood, or like the
Yeah,
biggest wood commodity that's out there. Who's the biggest supplier of that? I don't know that answer, but
I don't. We can Google it.
and like what are they? Yeah, I mean, it's such an interesting web, this whole situation of like
The US.
the US is the biggest supplier.
According to Wikipedia, the world's largest producer and consumer of officially accounted for wood is the US.
Interesting.
Yep.
Interesting.
But the one that I'm also seeing that China is producing the wood products. Oh, maybe it's new.
So we're like taking it from the US, shipping it to China for them to process it somehow.
Yeah.
They're like chipping it up, gluing it together to make particle board, and shipping those cheap ass products back to us.
Maybe it's like
That would be the system.
I think that China and the US are like really close in wood products, cuz when I'm this like really quick,
Yeah.
I'm a pro at the 30-second Google. It says that China recently, this was published in 2020, and China just recently overtook the US. Which makes sense to me because the US not is very actively working on deforestation efforts. And I read in one of the articles that deforestation in China is actually becoming a really big problem
Mhm.
because tree roots hold uh, like the soil together, and when they just like removed a forest and it caused crazy flash floods.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It completely messes with the ecosystems in general, the stability of the land. Yeah, there
Yeah,
are so many like unforeseen costs of what is happening that like it's just crazy that like it continues.
yeah, yeah, but really we didn't, I mean, we think of it as like it continues, and we really only had data of this being a environmental global problem since the 90s. That's like really when the data started coming. Even though like in the book And also, Catalina said with the cocoa production, this has been going on since the 60s and 70s.
Mhm.
Folk actually mentioned like the mid 50s, but like that time,
Yeah.
mid-century. But we didn't see it as like an issue till the 90s. So that's 30 or 40 years. And now we're 30
Mhm.
years down the line again. And we're like, fuck, that was a bad plan. You know? And we have to like, it was a lot easier to build that fucked up infrastructure than it is to dismantle it.
Oh, heck yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's the next step, really, is trying to like no longer be a part of these um really oppressive systems that are just demolishing our planet and the people. And
Mm-hmm.
that's not
Yeah.
going to be easy.
No, it's a lot, but it takes all of us to be
Yeah.
doing it, to be focusing on the solution, making it a priority, buying with our dollars, voting with our dollars for
Yeah.
brands that are using sustainable options and not using palm oil, and like divesting in palm oil and divesting in like um, all of these wood exports and the cocoa industry that is like cutting things down and eating less meat. If you eat less meat, it really changes your carbon footprint. Like all of these things matter. And deforestation is a symptom of a consumer problem. And the consumer problem is like all encompassing, you know? So you have to just live a better, more sustainable life in general, I think, is this one.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, because it's not a direct like relationship, right? Like, yeah,
Right.
like you were saying, it's just a symptom of the lifestyle that people have been leading for 30 years or 50 years, 60 years, you know? Yeah.
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 Yeah. But if you're a brand owner and you want to have that direct relationship, you should probably reach out to Cambium Carbon because you might be able to source good wood from them that is like not in the
Totally.
system at all right now.
Right. Yeah. And that, yeah, there's massive potential there with using that reclaimed urban wood.
I'm
Um,
so excited to watch them grow.
yeah, just yeah, reclaiming wood in general is going to be something that definitely grows in the next foreseeable future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
because there's a lot happening. Like one example is that we took the rafters off of our ceiling, and there's a bunch of wood there that was cut down in the 50s that we now use for all sorts of other construction. And there's a lot of reconstruction happening just because things need to be updated, and like even just around my neighborhood and around the world, there was a massive boom after World War II for like buildings being built. And
Mhm.
as those buildings are being changed and upgraded, there's a lot of fucking wood in there, guys. Like, figure out, give it to a secondhand place, or figure out how to reuse it in your house, in the new part of your house. It saves on cutting down trees with sourcing that might be questionable.
Mhm. And honestly, like the wood that was used back then is better quality than what can be found now because we're now in this like commodifying trees, cut them down as soon as we can. And that was like old wood that was used, back then. And
Mhm.
yeah, it's a strong resource that like can have multiple lives and needs to. And
Mhm.
yeah. Yeah, there are definitely people who work with woods in sustainable ways, source, good quality wood, and you got to just kind of seek them out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
do your research when you and do what you can, you know, choose products, especially meat products, and skincare products, and cocoa products. Those are the three ones that we learned a lot about this time or this month, that don't contribute to deforestation, and that would make a big difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, every little bit helps.
Sure does.
Yeah. Gosh, is that our episode? I think
So I wish
that's
we
our
had
overview.
more do
You can do it. We
you
can.
can do it. We can do it together.
Yeah, we're all in this together. So,
Yeah.
yeah, man. I mean, if you guys have any other thoughts or other solutions or things that you've encountered that, that have helped you to, I don't know, utilize better sourced wood, or if there are any resources or anything that you guys know about, please let us know. I'd love to know. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be great. Put them in the comments. Like, what are your resources? What questions do you have? What do you want to know more about?
And while you're at it, hit that
Subscribe.
subscribe button. Yes, we would really appreciate it. Every little bit of engagement helps. We really want this podcast to be something that, folks can kind of join the journey and learn along with us. And so join us on this adventure, uncovering the dirty secrets of this world through the lens of sustainability.
We're officially changing the information about this podcast to uncover the dirty secrets of this world through the lens of sustainability.
I guess that's what we're doing. I mean,
that's 100% what we're doing. We're just like, corruption, capitalism, colonial bullshit.
It's really interesting. I mean, when you start to dig into some of these issues, it doesn't take long to get to a global scale of like, what's the cause, what's the root of these issues, and it's all going to be
white people.
The same. Yeah. Just rampant hyper consumerism in the name of profits over planet or people. And that's gotta go.
Gotta go. Bye.
Yeah. Cancel that shit. That's the cancel
culture.
Take your energy and go and do that. Go find.
Leave my skinny jeans and my side part alone. Okay, please just go cancel.
Gen Z, we need you. Take your TikTok energy and use it against corporate insanity, please. Yeah, you have so much energy and you have the researching abilities. Yes. Yeah.
Wait, did you say Mackenzie, we need you?
Gen Z.
Oh my God, I thought you said, Mackenzie, we need you.
Maybe that's our avatar for Gen Z. That's our customer avatar.
Perfect. It's so perfect.
Gen Z, Mackenzie. That's hilarious. But it's true though. Yeah. I mean, Gen Z is doing so much to like uncover a lot and to really like help to.
They're asking the questions. Yeah.
They're shifting the narrative, and it needs to happen. And it's tough conversation for a lot of people to have, and they're hitting, they're getting a lot of pushback from people who don't want to think critically about certain things. And but yeah, that's progress, man. You're always going to have people that want to push back against progress. So
yeah, it's a good thing.
Yeah.
Lean into it.
We support you, Gen Z.
Mackenzie.
Gen Z Mackenzie. If your name is Mackenzie, subscribe.
Awesome.
Anyways, on that note, thank you guys for watching or listening. We really appreciate you being here.
And have a beautiful day.
Yeah, we'll talk to you
next
time.
Hug a tree.
Hug a tree. Yes, go appreciate a tree today. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.